are going to be moving on to our next match. It's Bozzzton versus SilverName, which is the lower bracket first match, which means the loser is done and not in a good way. They are out, which means they're done for the week. The points are finished for them, and then the winner goes on to play Viper for that final spot that's available for Group A in the Sunday final day of this week. Bozzzton looks like he's going to be locking in that Totem Shaman, which I have a few questions about. I feel like it's just a few cards away from a decent deck, but I just think that maybe a more controlling aspect would have been a better heads-up choice based on what you would expect to see.
What do you mean by more controlling aspects?
Either a much slower Galakrond or maybe even a Highlander variant list of Shaman. I think I personally would have gone with if I was building a lineup for this.
Really?
Just because I feel like aggro is very predictable, and Shaman not only has some great AoE removal, but also tons of heal. And I just think Zephrys and Alexstrasza are good cards. So yeah, I think I would have gone a little bit slower with some decks. I don't think you can do that with Paladin, to be fair, at the moment. I think it was available for Shaman. I'm surprised a few more players didn't go for that.
Okay. I will certainly agree that I don't think Totem Shaman is the bring in any regard. I think it's like sometimes it just like hits the nuts and you think, okay, how does this deck like ever lose in a million years? This is unbeatable. But the problem is 90% of the time it just doesn't do that, and it kind of flounders around a little bit. So we will wait and see. And I'm glad that we are seeing one of these kinds of matchups, because in our testing, which we did quite extensively, we did a lot of testing with Druid, I think, because we saw in the Swiss that Druid was being left up a lot out of the common decks that we've been seeing in week 1 and 2. And in our testing, the Druid was getting stomped by Paladin and stomped by Shaman. Now, that may have had something to do with who was piloting the Druid, Raven.
But, I actually don't recall who was piloting.
It was you. But it certainly looked like, obviously we were playing for the sake of practice, so we could see each other's hand a lot of the time. We were talking things over, and it really didn't feel like the Druid had a lot to be doing in a lot of these matchups. But in APAC, Gia went to bat for the Druid and won that argument resoundingly against Daruk based on the results that they saw in the APAC region, where Druid did incredibly well over.
Yeah, I am also excited to see it play out. I will just defend myself to a slight extent, where it definitely felt like it was you, Daruk, and Lorinda versus me, which was...
Fine.
I don't care, it was the other way around the week before, Sol. Talk about this week. But yeah, anyway, let's get into this game. I do really want to see how the removal stacks up versus the Shaman. Obviously, I think we all know if Druid can make a big board and stick it, it does pretty well with various buffs, damage, and so on. But for me, I just want to know how good these Crystal Powers actually become, if Bogbeam gets the job done or not, or if Bozzzton is just going to be able to actually build, like that one stupid health board from Totems.
Yeah.
That makes it too difficult for SilverName to deal with.
Yeah, for sure. I just love this point in the game, by the way. Like, Bozzzton just presses a button, a totem appears, and then the opponent's like, okay, panic. There's a
Crystal
totem
power?
on the board.
Question mark?
Yeah. Like, how much are you actually supposed to respect totems in these matchups? Like, I'm sure there's like a concrete mathematical answer to that based on how likely they are to have the punish for you here, but yeah.
I think my question, or at least the way I would go about it, and SilverName is doing the thing I would like him to do if he wants to win the game, I think, is if you deal with the totem this turn, can you deal with the next one next turn? Right. If not, should you have just tried to draw cards and get to Glowflies? Right. That's the problem, right? If you can't deal with it the next turn, then why deal with it this turn? It just doesn't make much difference if that's the case. So I do like the card draw. He did end up doing both, which is fair enough. But I definitely think he should have gone for the cards there.
Yeah, believe it or not, SilverName did attempt to draw some cards this turn. It just didn't work out particularly well for him.
Does that Horizon win, though? Bozzzton, I'm going to go, what about if I give the totem 2 extra health?
Got you, friend.
It's why
Jokes
minions
aside,
are
this is
so much better than spells against this deck, right? Because you could mess around like Crystal Powering a totem and then Wrathing a totem and then Bog Beaming a totem, but they're going to keep coming back. Whereas if you just play a Blazing Battle Mage on 1 against this deck, like, they just concede, pretty much.
Yep. And this, for me, really is one of the drawbacks for the players in this specific format. Is I am sure that Bozzzton, in a perfect world, and all the other players that are bringing this deck, should know whether they should or should not splitting axe that turn 100% of the time, right? And
yeah,
the problem is, I wonder how long each player has had time to actually practice a deck like this enough. Because I feel like if you whiff a turn with this deck, you probably just lose. Because the deck's not good enough, right? It's not good enough to just recover a lot of the time. So it's just one of those weird things where, like, splitting axe to get 2 0-4s, that maybe if I draw Totemic Reflection and become insane, you know, just a big, clunky, awkward to deal with board, might be good enough versus Druid, it might not. Also, you get the benefit of having the weapon. Is that right? I don't really know. And I'm not sure if all the players know that consistently anyway. It's just interesting to see maybe some of the players even figuring out bits of this deck on the fly as they play in, this weekend.
This is an ugly draw from SilverName so far.
Just rat him to draw more.
Yeah.
I like it that he's not overcommitting into this, though. I think stage 1 is just get glowflies on the board, right? And then try and deal with it from there. Now.
Okay, hang on. So, splitting axe, smash him in the face, you deal 5 damage, and you have 5 minions in play. So your opponent's at 24, your Bloodlust does 15, 16, 17, 20. Oh, sorry, no, you have 6. I forgot the other one. Yeah. So this is a lethal setup through Glowfly Swarm because of the 6 minions. So this is 100%.
Yeah, stop Bloodlust Storm's Wrath as well, because he's not overloaded, right?
Nope. Alright, next game.
Wow. What a weird deck!
GG, next game, Shaman stomps Druid, point to Daruk in retrospect.
This did feel like every game I played in testing, honestly. I was SilverName, you were Bozzzton, and you had Bloodlust on 5 every game. But anyway, Bozzzton takes the win, and it's only 1 win out of 3 he needs, but especially based on how his first series of the day went, it's going to feel good to have a straightforward one just in the bag, right? Get it done. Shaman's out the way. It was a bit awkward, and then obviously Bozzzton had some issues with his Hunter in the last series that he played. So just get the win out the way. Shaman's gone. Let's move on there. So he is going to go 1-0 up versus SilverName in a very strange game of Hearthstone. But we are going to go to a short break while we set up the next game. Don't go anywhere. It's Bozzzton versus SilverName, game number 2, coming right up.
Hello everybody, I'm TJ. I'm joined by America's Grandmaster as well as Masters Tour Bucharest champion Eddie. There was an unfortunate incident after you won Masters Tour Bucharest where a trophy malfunctioned in your very hands and you dropped it. You dropped it.
Winner of Masters Tour Bucharest.
Really? Okay, so really...
Eddie, how you doing, Eddie?
I'm doing okay.
Today, my goal is to make sure that never happens to you again.
I improved since then already. I won the World University Cyber Games in China.
If you make it to the global finals, I just want to make sure that you are prepared. So, what I've done is I've assembled a collection of trophies. And we're going to make sure that you've dropped your last trophy. I'll need you to put on this poncho. Are you frightened?
Yes.
I don't care. And we're back. Eddie, looking good. Clothes all protected, feeling good?
Yeah.
Are you ready to start the training?
No.
Okay. I have all these trophies here. See if you can catch some and hold on to them. You ready?
Okay.
We'll start easy. 1 trophy.
Okay. What are on these things?
Don't worry about it. Next one. Nice. Next one. We're gonna get harder now. 2 at a time. Let's go. There you go. There you go. Coming at you. All right, last one.
This one's broken.
Well, sometimes trophies are broken, Eddie. You should know that. All right, now it's time
What are you
for
doing?
your final test.
What are you doing?
You know, Eddie, when you play a Hearthstone tournament,
Calm down, calm down. Don't do this.
You never know how
Don't do
big
this.
and heavy your trophies are going to be. My training camp is almost complete.
Wow!
We are back and continuing the series between Bozzzton and SilverName. Bozzzton taking a pretty not straightforward win in terms of just the setup, but a pretty clear win over SilverName's Druid there, as there wasn't much SilverName could do about it in response. But there's still plenty more games to go, as one of these players needs to win 3 games to survive and stick around in this group. The loser will go home. Kind of, because they already are home, but you know what I mean. So, we'll see what happens here. Bozzzton has Hunter, Druid, and Paladin left to play or choose from. SilverName has his whole flurry of decks, including the Mage as, you know, the last deck, the 4th deck, whatever we're choosing to call it, Sottle.
The 7th deck. Screw it. I'm going back to it. It's fine. We're
the
back.
7th.
We're back. We're
7
back
makes no sense.
We're going back. It's fine. I realise we've been doing Lorinda a disservice here. I think, you know, throughout the APAC broadcast, throughout our broadcast, we've been talking about, you know, Druid's performed this on stream. It's done this on stream. That's a small sample size. Neil's gone through all the trouble of giving us a big sample size, so let's use that instead. Druid has a 45% win rate overall across all regions. 39% against Shaman, 48% against Paladin. So the big numbers do seem to support the idea that Druid is unfavored in the matchups that are important.
Right. I thought you actually were quoting those numbers, Sol, initially. So, yeah, my bad. Should have double-checked. Sorry, Lorinda. I'll make sure Sol uses the correct information next time. Going into game number 2, though. Bozzzton on this Hunter. Couldn't really make it work in his first series of the day. And he has like the same awkward matchup we talked about in his first series. Of if you don't get ahead with this Hunter against Druid, you can just be overrun and have no real good answers to big AoE boards. And I did, again, kind of talk about how Bozzzton's Hunter deck isn't really equipped or teched to deal with any of this stuff anyway.
No. This matchup specifically, pretty close. 47% win rate for the Druid. A little bit worse than that in Europe specifically, 41%, obviously over a smaller sample of games. Also worth pointing out that actually in Europe specifically, Druid has a positive win rate, 58% against Paladin, but still sucks against Shaman, apparently. When
you don't have a good turn 2 play, going out with turn 3 play instead. It's good to me. Bozzzton can go for Animal Companion, which I like a lot over the Desert Spear. It is unlikely you're going to trade with the Desert Spear and the Locust into anything significant in the following turn. So get the Animal Companion down.
That Bog Beam was played while it was still Bozton's turn. That's how quick that decision was just then.
As soon as there was the oink oink from Huffer, that beam was locked in.
Yes. Bozzdton needs big help off the top of his deck next turn, though.
Yeah.
Does have a Desert Spear into Faceless Corruptor set up for the coming turns, which is a very, very nice combination, even against Druid. Even particularly against Druid, I think she would say. But he needs a playable next turn, for sure, or he's going to be in a world of hurt in this game, I think.
Playable?
I guess he technically got his wish, yeah.
No reason not to, is there? And this is what I was talking about when I even just discussed the inclusion of Freezing Trap in the list. If you look at, you're expecting Druid to come up probably, and then there's Paladin, a good chunk is probably going to be Murloc. The Shaman, who naturally goes wide with little dudes, whether it's Galakron, Totem, or whatever. So, yeah, the Freezing Trap, I don't think Bozzzton can ever really expect it to get too much value at all this weekend, outside of very niche outcomes.
Right. Limited board generation unless SilverName wants to dump and innovate right now. He also has some hand size issues with the overflow.
I think Innovate Forest Aid in an Ironbark seems more than good here.
More than good, you say?
Well, he knows that Bozzzton doesn't play Explosive Trap, right? So his minions are just safe. And then what is Bozzdon's turn 5 response to a good chunk of minions, one of them being pretty big in terms of health? And if some of them live, then he has access to Power of the Wild, Soul of the Forest, and so on, to try and build on it in the following turns. Or maybe even at that point, because he's used enough cards, the Overflow.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. The Overflow turn just looks a bit icky otherwise.
He doesn't achieve anything, like, or not that much, because yes, you heal and draw cards. You're just letting your opponent's Hunter just build a bigger board and push more damage, right?
Yeah.
I like this a lot.
And even if your opponent somehow finds a way to just throw everything at this and gets like the majority of a clear done, well then just again, like, you know, you just use the twin spell and just jam it straight back into the same position the next turn. Faceless Corruptor is probably the one scary thing that Bozzdton could do this turn from SilverName's perspective. Just because it enables like big value trades, which is for sure not what SilverName wants to see here.
Right.
I guess the number one thing SilverName doesn't want to see is just huge amounts of damage to his face over like the next 3 turns into King Crush. Because that might be tough to beat.
I think he probably could beat that, because he can just if that's the plan and Bozzdton almost ignores the board to do face damage, then could SilverName just overflow into lethal at that point? Yeah, it feels like it
maybe.
anyway.
Yeah. Overflow Crystal Power and then you just have a million buffs the next turn and kill him.
Because Hunter just can't deal with it, right? This is literally one of the best turns Hunter can ever do versus Druid, and it's still not a board clear. You know what I mean? In terms of like this kind of point in the game. Like the Glowfly turns or whatever. Oh, big Freezing Trap. It's tree in there.
So does SilverName just go again?
Can he do anything else? Probably not, because the do anything else plan, I think, revolves around you being able to play Overflow as well.
Yeah,
if
you could
don't
have
build the board, you want to Overflow. You can Overflow in Crystal Power. Maybe that's
no. You still end up like you could have before the Freezing Trap, Crystal Power, then Overflowed, and then try to find a card like something to do with one of the cards that you drew. But once you had the Treant back in your hand, like it was never an Overflow turn from that point.
Still, though, SilverName has gone for a slightly different route and has not only cleared the board, but presented a bit of an awkward board again for Bozzdton to actually deal with here. One play, as far as I can see, Sol, and it revolves a Bane of Dragons.
Yeah, I think I'm with you.
If he misses, doesn't matter. It's on 27. It's fine.
What's
Still
the
the name.
miss? Is there a miss?
Well, okay, yeah. I mean, if you say it like that, I guess not.
From Bozzzton's perspective, is the miss hitting one of the minions?
I think my point is, if minions live, Bozzzton does not just die.
Sure.
Right? It's like he doesn't need to survive with this Dragon Bane. And SilverName probably just has to kill it. Regardless, so I feel like it's just a win-win if Bozzzton just plays it in hero powers. And Bozzzton can't play scared here. He can't go, oh, well, I can kill one of them with Rot Nest. That's just right. I like this Dragon Bane. Let's see where the damage goes. The True Hunter. Nope. Still, though, not bad. It does make the Dragon Bane a little bit more difficult to clear off.
Yeah. Almost impossible to clear off based on SilverName's current hand. He doesn't want to be hero powering it for 3 more damage right now.
Power of the Wild Moonfire.
Dump a Moonfire and Overflow? Try and
Is
find
there a
Bog Beam number
world
2?
where he doesn't kill it? Oh, is he gonna power the Wild Moonfire?
He's just dumping the other card to Overflow, which I guess
Sure,
makes
sure,
sense
sure.
because he keeps hold of the 0 mana card this way. And then worst comes to worst, he can still bail out with the Moonfire. Yep. Didn't find the Bog Beam, so Moonfire it is. Might have
So
ended up
Boom
still
Pist-
he might have ended up still using the Moonfire there, even if he drew the Bog Beam, just because he just needed to do 1 damage exactly in that position.
And 3 is pretty good versus Hunter, actually.
Yeah.
Does Boom Pistol hit nothing in Druid? I believe.
Sounds right.
Yeah, it would
If
only
you're playing-
deal with Ysera, right?
Exactly,
If you
yeah.
were playing it.
Yep.
Well, good a time as any to get it on the board then, I think.
Big minion, hero power. The question, though, is it biggest minion, hero power? Is that 1 extra damage potentially connecting face important here? Just to play Rotnest Drake instead?
It's probably fine. He has plenty of dragons.
Could be.
And the only thing he's bothered about sniping is KT, almost certainly, or a Mount Seller. But whenever that happens, the board is wide anyway,
Yeah.
so you can't really guarantee sniping it regardless. Bozzzton wants a different choice. Oh,
Fairy Dragon hero power? Evasive Fairy, okay. Is Fairy Dragon hero
Hey,
power
it-
not more damage over time? Question mark? I don't know.
dies to Treants quicker? Question. And the problem is, Bozzzton doesn't have Burst apart from exactly Unleash. So maybe he's on a bit more of the value plan, which makes sense because of the way he played the turn anyway.
Yeah.
And he has Alexstrasza, right? So maybe he just wants to survive to drop Alexstrasza and 2 big dragons down, and then say, well, if you don't kill them, you're dead.
Okay. Seven on board, 5 spaces for dogs is 12 plus a hero power 14.
One off. The problem here, honestly, is the killable minion only really reduces the damage down by 1 because of Unleash, right?
Yes.
So even if you wrap this
Oh.
down... Oh, what was that?
Any damage? No.
I think you go all face, right? Unleash face?
I wonder.
I mean, I guess you have to.
My argument...
You can't clear up enough of the board to stay alive, right?
Yep. the board's never going to be bigger. And also, if SilverName can't kill you from 30, yeah, he has to trade, doesn't he? Which means just might give you that extra turn.
Yeah.
And the rest of his hand doesn't really do anything, does it?
It's
if you can't trade.
It's literally just Savage Roar, though. That's all he needs.
So you could 6-or and like what is 1 minion a breakpoint?
Yes.
We could just
kill 1 minion, go face with the rest.
Yeah, 6-or.
I like this. Now he needs Power of the Wild and Savage Roar, which he does have, but I think playing around the just Savage Roar breakpoint makes sense.
Seems reasonable. Not much Bozzzton could have done there. Did his best, but again, the fact that we may have been talking a little bit today about the downside of drawing all the cards, like in that pre-game earlier on. But yeah, the upside is you often have access to every board buff required for those kind of lethals, right? So SilverName fighting back, getting another win, and Bozzzton single-handedly trying to bring that Hunter win rate down across the board. So we'll see how that continues out for him for the rest of this series. But it is all even. And again, Bozzzton does not have to win with this Hunter. The players can need to win with 3 of their 4 decks, and they can switch to any of them as long as they have not won with it. So, for example, on this screen, Bozzzton cannot queue his Shaman again, but can queue any of his other 3 whenever until they win. Same with SilverName, can't queue his Druid, but he could queue his Mage now, or his Shaman, or his Paladin, or whatever, until he wins with 3 separate decks. So just in case you're not familiar with the way these rules are working, we are mixing it up, and it's a little bit different, but overall, first to 3 wins.
Yeah, and not sure if we've covered where these players are standing in terms of progressing through to Division A or Division B, but SilverName is locked up. He is just playing for additional points, additional pride, and additional seedings, and whatever else comes with finishing in a higher position. Whereas Bozzzton still has everything to play for. He is in an incredibly similar position to Viper in the previous series. Whereas if he makes it to top 2, that's always good enough. As far as we're concerned, he's going to be in Division A no matter what. If he gets a top 4, then question mark. There are lots of caveats and asterisks
and,
that
we'll
come into play. Basically, all of these people just don't want Pavel to win is one of the big things to happen. If any of these players are saying that like top 4, they maybe make it in. But yeah, the easy way to look at it is Bozzzton is looking to make top 2 this weekend, and then he's going to lock himself up a position in Division A alongside SilverName, who is already there.
Yeah, really interesting the way it's all shaken out. That it has come down to just a couple of players knocking about in terms of just the difference between just getting Division A or just slipping into Division B based on the results of this weekend. But we are going to game number 3. And again, SilverName queuing this Mage against what he has to expect is the Hunter. Very interesting to me that he wants to queue this, but maybe he just rates the other decks that much worse.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe he's just a gamer and he just draws Zephyrus Reno every game. Who knows?
At least it's not Puzzle Box. It's the first Phase Stalker we've seen from Bozzzton all day, sorry. Just because it's such a good card to thin some of the deck out, and we've not seen it at all in any of Bozton's games.
Mage against Hunter in Europe, 0-4 before today. Does seem to suggest this is a pretty sketchy queue overall.
Yeah. From SilverName, correct? Like, Mage is losing those.
Mage is 0% against Hunter.
Yes.
I can raise you, sorry. Mage in all regions, 0-8.
Oh, this is what I mean. It's so... I don't know. It's... I know Bozton's going to queue Hunter until he wins with it anyway, because it's Hunter. But that's my question, right? Is the Paladin Shaman that much worse that you would queue Mage into this? I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, obviously it's a much bigger sample size on the Shamans and Paladins, but it does seem to suggest that they at least have a chance. But again, it's still such a huge number. Like, Hunter versus Shaman is 70% over 53 games. That's enormous. that is comparable when you sort of like tie in sample sizes to 8 wins out of 8 against Mage, right? Like it seems to suggest they're just kind of similarly terrible matchups. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is just fine.
What's also fine for Bozzzton is that evasive Felwing, going to be a bit of a problem to deal with. SilverName has access to a Frost Nova and a Doomsayer, but most importantly has access to that Reno Alb of Coin.
We're gonna have some fun.
There is the freezing trap in play, so Bozzzton doesn't at least have to worry about the threat of Reno as a minion impacting his board. Reno, the battle cry, has certainly impacted his board. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
I wonder.
It's just, I don't know, the point being, like, with the Reno, like, locked up to the freezing trap anyway, you're kind of just free to develop other minions, is kind of what I'm saying, right? You could just play Dragon's Bane there, and Reno can't contest it. But, yes. The danger of the freeze is definitely a real big deal, for sure.
Yeah.
The end is coming. Job's done.
Ray of Frost really helping out some of these Doomsayer plays, and now he's protected the Reno from the Doomsayer proc if it goes off.
Yeah, no, that is very true. Bozzzton, which side are you playing for right now? Come on, stop protecting your opponent's minions.
And then Siamat to follow up. SilverName is very quickly getting a hold on this game.
Yeah.
And it's not one that Hunter can often come back from as well. Only pushed him down to 22 so far. We know that's an ice barrier, and I believe, I will double check, but I believe that is the only secret he is playing. Yes! So Bozzzton will be 100% sure that's the ice barrier as well, which means SilverName effectively at full health and just put the brakes on this game.
Yep, for sure.
He can clear if he wants, right?
Time moves quickly.
Yes. Yes, he can.
I think he might have to.
Wait, no, does the minion doesn't count for a dog, right? Oh, you just do it with hero power instead. It's fine.
Oh yeah.
No, it's not fine because you don't.
No. He needed to attack him with the 1/3 to clear, right?
No, it's still only 6. Okay, yeah. Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
On the south.
Oh wait, never mind. I thought that worked the other way around.
Job's done.
Well, at least Reno's dead.
Divine Shield taunt from SilverName. Again, not having dealt with that freezing trap though, this is the mode that makes the most sense. There's no point like giving it Wind Fury or anything like that because he knows it doesn't get to attack anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So just leaving it there as a big taunt seems the most logical thing to do.
Ooh. Not bad Conjurer's Calling if he wants to go really wide.
Yeah, Wrapped Golem is very strong here, honestly. Even now, Ray of Frost the Dragon's Bane, and then there's a good chance that maybe he can get a 1/1 to attack next turn into the freezing trap.
Yeah, I was wondering whether you Conjurer's Call the 7/5.
Time runs out on
Go
me.
real wide.
I
You can see that too.
So it's definitely tough though, because I mean we're sat staring. Oh, He's not going to conjure the rat.
Whoa!
Okay. Okay. It's all just dog food as far as Bozzdton's concerned, though.
Yeah, I mean, there is the small matter of some 7/5s and 6/6s.
Ah, whatever. Unleash. Corrosive Breath, the 1/1.
Everything
the
else
other one.
face.
Base. Yeah. I mean, that looks honestly the most chance that Bozzdton's got of winning this game because he can't trade through these 7/5s. Okay, maybe he can trade through that one.
Yep.
So now I wonder whether he kill commands and leaves the 7/5 alone. Isolates it out. He could actually kill command the other 7/5 and
Yeah.
leave.
that seems
Yeah, that
better.
makes more sense.
Just
Yeah,
leave
yeah,
Nomi
seems
up,
better.
yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say leave Cho up. Shows how long we've not cast Nomi for, isn't it?
Wait, you were
Wanted
going
to
to
call
say
him
that?
Cho. Yeah. Just wanted to call him Cho for some reason. Actually, quite like the kill command too. Double trade. Still a Dragon's Bane on board. Oh, okay, Bozzdton.
Always a good draw to see when you've just kill commanded your opponent in the face.
Mm-hmm.
The freezing trap's still a problem though, right? Like, and I think that's what Bozzdton's banking on, because now he has the Corrosive Breath for 3, he has Hero Power for 2, and then he just needs a tiny bit of auxiliary damage to go through. But it still seems like a pretty tenuous plan.
Well,
Your
he
three-
also
your
has
thr-
Snake Trap.
Sure.
So if SilverName trades, then it's going to generate 3 extra 1/1s, right?
Sure.
So he's not too much damage away.
I wonder.
Sure. That's fair. So SilverName would have to react with AoE or freeze most of the time.
Time runs out on me.
Somehow, don't think we'll be seeing that Chef Nomi again anytime soon.
Oh, make sure you get the turn off.
Looks fine.
Okay. Got the Dragon Bane dead, which is key, because there's no just 5 damage going to hit face out of nowhere. Oh. Well, that is the game.
Well then, yes it is.
Stormhammer coming in clutch, finishing up the game there for Bozzdton, taking extra damage. SilverName a little bit upset with that one, but I will say Bozzdton, especially in the later turns there, did a very good job of giving SilverName just an annoyingly frustrating turn, right? Like, SilverName could not do every single thing he wanted to, even with the Alexstrasza draw. He couldn't just Alex himself, because then he leaves too much damage up, especially with that freezing trap. So it worked out pretty well there. Not too bad at all for him.
It did, yeah. I will confess I was not factoring in the snake trap into my calculations, where it really felt like he left himself like needing a draw. He didn't really like present a problem to SilverName. Like SilverName could just freeze something, trade something on the board, clean up the board, and be done with it. With the snakes thrown into that as well, SilverName needed to react to the board, deal with all the traps, freeze or clear the remaining snakes that came out, and then still dodge top decks from Bozzdton's side as well. So I think he put himself in a pretty strong position there overall. I think SilverName did the best he could. But yeah, Stormhammer off the top. We've seen Stormhammer throughout, I think, every week just being MVP for Hunter overall. If you don't have Weapon Destruction for that card, it's going to torture you the whole game. And even if you don't draw it early, you can still rip it off the top for that 3 extra damage you need at the end of the game.
Yeah, it's one of the cards that really makes Hunter as good as it is right now, because it does, although it obviously does a lot of damage, what it also does is it negates to a certain extent the lack of card draw in Hunter, right? Because any card that you can get so much use out of for just drawing one card, then it just is so much more valuable in a deck that doesn't really draw that much. So that there are other cards that do
fight
similar
with
jobs,
honor.
but at the moment, that one is just almost solo carrying Hunter right now.
Yeah, forget about card. Just imagine you drew a free fiery war axe every turn. That sounds pretty good, right?
Right, but that's kind of the cards that Hunter needs, right? Because it just literally has nothing. So I'm okay with it. If it was any other class, I'd be annoyed.
Give Hunter more scam hammers. Raven 2020. Okay.
Look, you can take the hammer back if you give us Master's Call again. Okay?
Okay.
I'm willing to make that trade.
Fair enough.
But let's go into game number 4. Bozzzton going for his Druid now, and SilverName on the old Murloc Paladin.
And again, this is a matchup that in our testing, it was just, curve out, get some damage in play, land a War Leader, land a Blessing of Kings, whatever it is. Hit them until they're nicely dead. It seemed, fairly straightforward from the Paladin side in our experience. Our results have absolutely not reflected that throughout the Swiss and throughout the broadcast so far.
Oh, sorry, I'm an idiot. It just looks like Murloc Paladin. It's kind
It's
of
Highlander.
Murloc Paladin.
It's Highlander.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Highlander Murloc Paladin. Apologies. I'm very sorry. But yeah, Highlander Murloc. This is a weird list. What's going on?
SilverName. SilverName's going on.
Yeah. High Inquisitor Whitemane is in the list. Dragonmaw Skystalker. Card I do like, actually. Argent Commander's in there for some top end. Okay. Okay, SilverName. Let's see what it's got. Air Raid.
Just naming cards in this voice now?
Yeah. I feel like SilverName might have took a community poll with like 30 people randomly chosen to pick 30 cards. And he got this deck.
SilverName does have a heck of a community on his side, I will say that. It's like how, as an Arsenal fan, if you look at like sports polls that like newspapers or websites or whatever put online, the Arsenal-related option will always win. For some reason, the online Arsenal community just dominate every like poll and vote and everything online. That's SilverName in Hearthstone. Like his fan base will always make sure that SilverName is on top when it comes to public opinion.
Unless it's a vote on who hates their club owner the most, it's probably Newcastle.
Yes,
At that point. So we
true.
can win some things. Getting back to the esports and not the sports balls.
the analog sports.
The analog sports, yeah. The sports of old. SilverName is just putting on a lot of pressure. I was going to say, which is when I hit the discovery of Highlander, so forgive me, but I feel like Scale Lord was instrumental in the power level of Murloc Paladin. Scale Lord is in this list, but that card in itself seems to carry the whole archetype on its back. Because if you land that, the game looks so much better.
Certainly against Druid, yeah, because they struggle to, they don't play minions early to contest your minions, and they struggle to have enough removal to throw at them all. So if you have Scale Lord in your hand, come turn 5, like you're almost always looking at 2 or 3 Murlocs plus at that point. Obviously, Highlander list is a little bit different, but again, this isn't like a straight-up Highlander Paladin like we've seen in the previous series. This is very much Highlander Murloc Paladin, with the War Leader, Cold Light Seer, like all of those cards are still in there. So I think it's very similar. It's just that there is only one Scale Lord for SilverName to draw.
I do love, right?
Absolute Scale Lord. Look at him.
I was going to say, before that was very funny, I feel like, because this is my first season casting SilverName, right? Because I didn't cast Europe last year.
Yeah.
SilverName looks and reacts like I feel like all of us do when we're playing ladder, not when we're not on camera. Because Bozzzton just played Glowflies and a Crystal Power, and he's like, I can't believe he had those cards. It's like, well, they're in his deck. But I just feel like that's how everyone responds when they're not being watched playing Hearthstone.
Yes.
So it's amusing to me quite a lot, because I know I do things like that. I can't believe he had this one drop. It's like Zoo or something I'm against.
The personification of the "where my opponent played cards" meme.
Yes, exactly. Ooh, Mount Seller, along with that Bog Beam, is actually pretty nice here. It doesn't
is.
guarantee get the job done, but it gets the job done a lot better than just 2 glowflies does.
Is it just the easiest diving griffin of Boston's life?
It would be a good one, wouldn't it, if he managed it?
I wonder.
Problem is, if you just get like a regular, vanilla beast with some stats, it's a really hideous turn because your bog beam just doesn't do it. Okay, never mind.
Easiest kind of griffin of his life.
For
Yeah.
no one.
Couple of value trades now. Very nice.
The follow-up of Overflow next turn. I imagine for Bozzdton, which will not only make him a little bit safer to this, although it's Highlander but still an aggro deck, but also just draw him a ton of cards.
Yeah, unless Bozzdton somehow gets left with a board where Gift of the Wild is appealing, which would be basically all of this board. Don't think it's going to happen somehow. Saving his Zephyrus still. Okay.
I like it. I like it. I think SilverName is running out of cards and needs his Zephyrus to just like fireball or something. Just quickly end the game out of nowhere. Maybe a silence. And it is looking a little bit close. Although Overflow feels like it heals for 1 million, it does, but not only to your face, right? It's only 5. So 5 is definitely reachable for SilverName. Trade
You don't want
funds.
to put the prime in his deck first, because healing it up doesn't create any value trades on the board.
Nope. Small slip, maybe.
I mean, it's justifiable. It's not strictly wrong because you can just draw removal spells off the removal spells or Ironbark off the Overflow, which you then want to use your minions to. Yeah, exactly what he's doing here. Like, this is a real thing that could happen. It's just the prospect of actually drawing the prime seems like straight up game winning sometimes here.
Yeah.
Time waits for no one.
Looking at whether he wants to actually kill this Scale Lord, I imagine. Could if he really wants to.
Yeah. Use Crystal Power, he can use Innovate Wrath, he can also just Innovate, draw more cards and take BTs on board, which is what I like. Yeah, I think this makes sense.
Starfall in there for Bozzdton as well. And really starting to come together, as it often does when you draw your deck in about 5 turns. Looking good for Bozzdton. SilverName does have this Zephyrus, but not much else right now.
Reporting for duty.
Zephyrus usage does start to look a bit sketchy. He could have had like a higher tempo turn against the Mount Seller by just, nuking that turn with Zephyrus and just pushing straight past it. He is still preserving
Zephyrus
it.
now for Tyrion though, right? Is that not better?
Zephyrus this turn for Tyrion next turn?
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a real thing you could try for sure. I think
And it's not
SilverName is really all in this AoE lethal buff though, right now.
It's so hard to play against Druid at this point in the game. Excuse me. Because they've drawn so much of their deck, if you know they have AoE like Starfall, it just feels horrible, right? Because they just probably have it. But you have to play into it, and a lot of the time, you have to play as if they don't have it, even though you know it's extremely likely.
Yeah.
But I think that's why I like the preemptive lock in a Tyrion, because it's a backup, and not even the worst backup. SilverName actually runs a Tyrion in his list.
Mm-hmm.
Time waits for no one.
6 damage left in play. I don't think there's
Two
any
off, right?
8 available from Zephyrus here on 6 mana.
Nope, only 6.
Avenging Wrath, everything goes face.
Yeah, one of those likely outcomes.
Yep.
Your wish is my suggestion.
Oh, the worst Holy Nova I've ever seen.
Why did he get offered Holy Nova and Consecration? Question.
Because
because his opponent is low enough that the game's considering the 2 damage from Consecration relevant, he might still want Holy Novus. It's weird just to see both of those cards don't come up at the same time.
Yeah.
I figured like Zephyrus would treat those as redundant choices. Like, actually, I think players would appreciate getting offered very similar cards like that more often, because, you know, then they can make small decisions as the good players as to what Zephyrus is going to give them. But normally it doesn't, like, necessarily behave like that.
Yeah. I was expecting Soul of the Forest, honestly.
What to do?
But I guess you making a sticky board is not as a higher priority as killing your opponent's board. It's much wider than yours, so yeah.
Yep. Certainly, SilverName got extremely good usage out of that Zephyrus there.
Wonder.
Certainly would be fair to point that out after I've been questioning it for the last few turns. His line seems to have paid out very, very well indeed.
This Scale Lord is just there.
Time waits for no
So
one.
insane. Why is it still alive?
I mean, how does Druid kill something that's a 5/6, let alone when it gets Divine Shielded and buffed and everything else on top of that? Like, come on.
Doesn't look like there's enough time for this.
Nope.
I think Boston's just given up. It's going to be game number, what was that, 4? Who's SilverName? Which means we're going to a game 5 for this one. So close. These games just feel so strange in just the way they're playing out, mainly because we're just not used to seeing some of these decks, but I definitely feel like the players aren't used to it. And I'm not saying they've not practiced, you know, don't get me wrong before I get shouted at or something, but I just mean I feel like there's so much more thinking going into just overarching plans as opposed to, is this the perfect turn? Is this the best single turn? It's more like, do I want to clear? Do I want to build a board? Should I be doing this? In terms of just the approach to certain matchups more than anything. Just what I'm feeling.
Yeah, for sure. Dorinda is actually just messaging us in Discord talking about how with the quest being activated there off the Zephyrus, that there were potentially some lethal outs. But obviously, like, does Zephyrus know that the side quest is proccing there to buff the board for the 2 extra damage? Does it not know? SilverName just ended up taking the consecration anyway, which ended up being game ending. But yeah, certainly a little detail that we missed. So once again, MVP Lorinda, thank you very much for pointing that out. Good job.
What would we do without you? Be worse. That's the answer, Lorinda. So
Have
good job.
have a lot more peace and quiet.
Oh yeah, it would be quieter, but we would be worse for it. So it's a trade I am happy to make.
Okay.
I'll say the nice things, Laurie, don't worry. You know what Saul's like. Anyway, let's go into game number 5 and the final game of this series. It all comes down to this. SilverName already guaranteed to be in Division A. Bozzzton, not so. So he would really like to win this game.
Yes, indeed.
What do you think about the Mage versus Druid matchup?
I mean, are we talking this mage or new scam mage, Raven? That's the big question.
I don't ever want to talk about new Scam Mage, so this Mage.
Okay, fair enough. I think personally, my experience has shown that it's Druid favored. The stats on like ladder stats, like huge sample size stats, suggest it's much closer than I think it is. But then the stats here sort of are more back in line with what I'm expecting. Like all regions Druid versus Mage, 59% for the Druid.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you put a gun to my head and ask me, I'd call it like a 55% matchup for the Druid. So yeah.
Okay, well, let's see how it pans out. Often Mage can't freeze out long enough or clear enough the awkward boards that the Druid can make. But even this, just an early little threat coming down here from Bozzzton. Bozzzton does have the Omega ramp as well. Mage wishes it could play Overgrowth.
Yeah. A lot of classes wish they could play Overgrowth. Like, the dumb, greedy decks other classes could build if they were allowed to ramp in the way that Druid can. Poor.
Maybe Paladin and Shaman would be okay. Probably not. I think Shaman could. And a Saber coming down. SilverName's best impression of an Overgrowth.
Yeah, unless you go full Hunter Ace and like Grave Rune that thing and make like 4 of them.
Ooh, interesting call now. There's the Glowflies or a second Overgrowth for just maximum mana.
Obviously, Glowfly puts 7 total 2 health minions on the board here, assuming there's enough spells in hand. I never check, like when I'm casting, if there's enough spells in hand to fill the board when the hand's this big. There just kind of always is.
There always is.
Yeah. So if you make the full board, there's 14 health in play, and the Mana Saber attack only takes out 2. So obviously Reno is not a huge threat, but of course Blizzard is. It's always the risk you've got to weigh up in this kind of spot.
Time waits for no one.
Yeah, he does have the second one, which makes it a little bit more appealing for me to play Glowfly number 1. If you have the second one as a reload. If he only had one, I'd maybe consider Overgrowth a little bit more. But yeah, let's see what happens here. The Reno is available.
Yeah.
He
has Coin, Arcane Breath, attack with the Mana Saber, then Reno.
Sure.
All clear.
Okay. At first, I thought he was just gonna just coin it and maybe keep the Mana Saber hidden. I'm not sure why he would do that though, because it doesn't really make sense with what's on his hand. So yes, he does get the board clear overall, and suddenly Bozzzton's got a bit of an uphill climb just because these 2 minions are a little bit awkward to deal with.
Yes.
No Bog Beam, but he does have a Wrath to clear up the Mana Saber at least. Which I think is fair to say is priority number 1 for Bozzzton, because he just wants to cut out the extra ramp and slow SilverName down a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Because this is actually a key point in the matchup sometimes, is, you know, you feel like from the Druid side that you can just go wave of threats, right? Like, Bozzzton in that spot just played the first Glowfly, says to himself, okay, if it gets cleared, I have another one, they have to answer that one too. The problem is when the mage starts to put minions on the board like this, they can just lock you into, like, freeze your stuff, smack you in the face over and over again for a few turns, and you're just kind of dying. And they make it all the way up to, like, Reno mana and then just reset the game. So you do have to respect their minions to a degree as the Druid in this matchup.
He's going to go for the half and half, not trying to do anything too crazy removal-wise. Not that I don't think he could, actually, but turn off the Mana Saber, getting those Glowflies live. Now it's back on SilverName. Is this a freeze turn? The board is big, but there's no way for SilverName to bank on it, right? You can't really cash in like the freeze to do anything else.
Nope. I don't think he can throw out a freeze here. I think the board is going to get bigger from this point onwards, and he doesn't have enough freezes to bridge the gap between now and Reno. So if he needs turns where he doesn't freeze, rather those turns now when the minions are 2/2s than now when they're 4/4s.
The Crystal Power actually really nice just to squeeze in that turn to ping off this Kartuk defender. Wow. It's probably worth trading in, right? Conjurer's Calling randomness into a Frost Nova potential.
Do you care? Yeah, okay, so exactly Conjurer's Calling Frost Nova. Because one Conjurer's Calling here doesn't scare me, and he can't cast 2.
Yep.
But the combination with Frost Nova, sure.
And then you know the second one can come afterwards, you know, in the following turn if it comes down. So, and also as well, I feel like there's more than enough damage and health on the board for Bozzzton. I think 1/4/4 gone. Yes, the other one can be pinged away.
Nah, I'm going face. Hey!
Ooh,
Alright.
okay.
Nice. There's a Dragon Activator, but there's not a massive payoff spell. I think last turn, Dragon Caster Deep Freeze would have actually been good enough. But this turn, not so much.
Nope. And the good thing is, as well, I say good thing, but the positive thing for SilverName is that he isn't going to be casting Alexstrasza next turn anyway. So if the Dragon Caster's active now, it's active next turn, which means he can maybe go for the Deep Freeze if relevant, or if he draws a box, or, you know, a Blizzard, whatever. So it's not like he's like, I need to utilize this Dragon Caster now because I want to cast Alexstrasza next turn. He can't. We say.
Right.
Oh. Okay.
what to do.
Power of the Wild, to dump a card, overflow. Just an overgrowth for the 0 mana spell. Interesting. Starfall Arena instead. Okay. I was going to say this. So here's the awkward part of the decision that seemingly Bozzzton and I both liked about going face last turn. Is that if you start getting frozen, I think like you're going to want to overflow pretty soon, and then if you overflow, obviously you're healing up your opponent's Reno Jackson, which can then start value trading over your board.
Yeah.
So Bozzzton chooses to forgo all that and just Starfall down the minion instead.
Yep, and you can look as well as me, Sol, but I do not really see a way out here. This just looks like death no matter which way you slice it.
Dragoncaster, he's 100% dead. Rustied Raider...
He's not 100% dead?
No, he's still 100% dead.
Hmm.
It's a 5/8.
Oh, sure, because
kills two of them.
it lines up. Yep, you're right,
Yeah.
you're right.
What a day!
Maybe he doesn't see it, says SilverName.
You never know. Boston's there like, you fool. Yeah, Bogbeam, Power of the Wild. Pick your poison as Bozzzton wins the series 3-2. Close one overall going to game number 5, but he's going to be moving on to the final match of the day, and he's still alive and has a chance, where SilverName is out of this weekend. But good to know, he is locked in for Division A anyway. So I guess it's one of those win-win outcomes. Obviously, SilverName would have liked to have won, of course, and moved on and carried on playing. But for Bozzzton, I'm happy that he's still knocking around. He's still got a chance to go into that Division A. And SilverName, he already got his job done. This was just the cherry on top this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. The players that are needing to get work done this weekend are doing it so far. They're still in there scrapping for sure. So, happy to see that. But of course, to SilverName's legion of fans, Russian and otherwise out there, then you can see that he is secure in Division A despite his 0-2 performance when he got to broadcast. He has still done exceedingly well in Swiss over the course of the 3 weeks, as well as on broadcast that one other week as well, which means he is locked in to Division A when we proceed to round robin next week. But now, Raven, we have the serious matter of Viper versus Bozzzton, because for either of these players, just a top 8 finish, i.e. not making it out of group, will never be good enough, which means one of these players is locked into Division B after they lose this next series.
Yeah, we're going to be finishing the day on quite the fantastic match with a lot on the line for both these players, as you just mentioned. So it's going to be a spicy one. So we'll give you a couple of minutes to get ready. Go grab a drink, maybe a couple of biscuits or something. Sit down and get ready. We'll be right back with the last match of the